Hey, welcome you all to the Milton City Hall. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting of Milton Plan Commission for Tuesday, July 9th, 2019 to order. And the first item of the agenda is the roll call.
Commissioner Paulson.
Here.
Hubbard.
Here.
Rar.
Yeah.
Bree.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Clavish.
Here.
Ramsey is absent, 6 present.
All right. Did he say he was not coming? Abby, did Dan say he was not coming?
I don't think I heard from him either, no.
Okay. Well, that's.
Oh, you know what? There's an L&O meeting going on. Isn't he on L&O now?
Oh, yes, he is.
I bet that's where he is.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. So then that's.
Should I just check?
No, I'm sure he's aware of this.
Well, yeah, it is good to let him know that, we can't go to the public hearing, so we go to the minutes.
There was a typo in the minutes, an
Yep,
error that
yep.
our office manager inadvertently made, and we sent out a revised set of minutes. I don't think it's in the packet though, is it? But you should, did you all get the minutes on Wednesday, the revised?
Yep.
So, and Wayne, did that address your concerns?
Yep.
Then, as revised, I don't have any other. I'm not aware of any
Okay,
other errors.
need a motion to approve.
Move approve. Second.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the minutes as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
And I recorded Hubbard and Murray. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
Jen, I heard 2 seconds over here, so I wasn't sure who to choose.
So, item number 2, specific implementation plan modification for sign design review, Peter Kraus Fitness, 1826 Aurora Street. So this is the Milton Center Phase 2, and it's good that it's coming along quite nicely. And I looked at this, well, the sign actually looks pretty good, so.
Bridget from Ryan Signs is here if you have any questions. This is a request for one non-illuminated facade sign over 2 windows front of the east elevation of the building. It's only 16 and a half square feet of signage. So staff recommendation is approval as a minor modification to the SIP.
Bridget, are you happy with this? You want to say anything more? Okay, all right.
Move approval as a minor SIP modification.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Where is the entrance to the
Thank you, Mike.
fitness?
It's on the east elevation facing the plaza site.
Is it to the right or left of
Oh.
the sign? Will there be any signage on the door as well, or like a entrance for the fitness facility indicating that that's the door?
So
I'm
she's
wondering-
interested that, the entrance is to the left there. So would there be a sign so that people know they're entering the right facility?
Yes, he has vinyl on his door.
Vinyl?
Vinyl, like a sticker
Oh,
on his main
okay.
entry door.
Okay, all right.
That's actually an excellent question, because otherwise, people don't know. How? Is that the right place?
And
'Cause
he
usually-
occupies both, sort of, outside both of the lamps. There's 2 awnings that he occupies the entire space.
Oh, okay. Okay. I like the sign.
Yeah, looks sort of neat. Any other questions?
That guy in the thing he's not gonna be standing there the whole time. That's not part of the design, is it?
No,
Okay. That's just the
digital.
digital.
Yeah.
I know.
I like those, but those benches would be there, right?
Yes.
They are there.
Oh, they're already there? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, the motion is to approve the SIP modification for sign design review for Peter Kraus Fitness, 1826 Aurora Street. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Bridget, go and enjoy yourself
Thank
now,
you.
so. All right. We are on to item number 3. Certified survey map, Whispering Pines condominium, Pleasant View Road. And I was surprised. I thought this was done long time ago, and it's still there, hanging in there, so.
This was before the Plan Commission July of last year, and one of the conditions of approval was to have this CSM developed to establish the outlot, 7,313 square foot outlot from city-owned Lot 1. And so that is what's before you tonight, is the CSM that establishes the outlot. And our engineering staff comments have all been addressed, to my knowledge, from what I understand from our engineering staff.
Move approval.
Second.
So this is sort of a L-shaped green area, is that what you're referring to there?
That's the city-owned lot.
Do-
The L shape is, or if you look on the front on the staff report, you'll see a little, where the arrow's pointing, you'll see what's now the outlet, and then, of course, the CSM in your packet provides the details.
So
But
it's.
This holds the stormwater. I should
The
have
outlot shown in yellow on the screen in front of us, this is the, this is a screen capture from DCI map. So it already exists?
That's a good question. Can you go up to the CSM? Please. Actually, I might have misspoken. Sorry, I did this 2 weeks ago and I maybe forgot.
That CSM seems to show the outlot.
That
But
wasn't
why does DCI map have
a good
something already
question.
recorded?
The outlet was previously shown on various plans approved by the Plan Commission, but the city had not approved a CSM to legally define that area, that it was being sold to Ellefson companies. Kurt, that's a very valid question. I don't know the answer.
Can we pull up DCI map and see how the assessor?
That's where I got it from. Is that,
Yeah, that photo,
yeah.
Thought they were talking about the whole thing, but
should just have a bookmark there.
Well, maybe as the mayor said, maybe this was just a formality that just needed to be done and had never been done. But you're right, how would that have been
And does the
shown?
city have to approve the sale?
We are closing.
If you're
Could you
gonna,
come to the mic,
just have to
please?
get to the mic so that the,
Identify yourself and who you are and.
So I'm Mike Ellefson,
Right.
Ellefson Companies. The city already had approved the sale of this land, and now we're just basically dotting the i's and crossing the t's on the CSM itself. I'm not sure how it showed up on DCI maps like that. It popped up like that probably back in January of this year. I'm not exactly sure how that happened.
Yeah.
says you own it, it
By
says
you.
it's lot 1 CSM. And
Right.
outlot,
Is it 0.17 acres?
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember the city council approving it.
Yeah.
Well, it was
So-
a contingency.
So, as part of the sale, we pushed back the closing to the time that we were gonna actually need to use it. And that time that we're gonna need to use it is in the next month or so. So that's why we delayed the sale.
Well, according to the county register of deeds, you own it and it's already been subdivided.
Well,
So we could approve it again, but
I mean, I'll certainly accept that you gave that to me.
Yeah, it was done last year. so-
well, I mean,
that's how efficient we are, Kurt.
we're so efficient that we, before we even approve things, the county recorder of deeds changes the official map.
They know.
Yeah, I can't explain this. I mean, this is a project that the CSM came in and we reviewed it, and I didn't connect the dots when I pulled the DCI map. I was heading out of town, so I was in a hurry.
It's a small parcel. I think Leaf made a motion to approve and I seconded, so
But I did.
to
look
the
at
extent that
record-
it's even needed.
I did look at the record that we had not ever taken this step, though. So I can't explain how it happened, but we
Well,
still
let's
need to
take the
formally
step.
take this step.
Let's formally take the step then.
I remember that, anyway, we had long discussions about this parcel.
We did.
We will,
We
we'll
did.
double check what happened last year to make sure we're not creating some sort of conflict.
Okay, so So do we really, if it's already approved, why, what would I do?
Let's make
to-
sure that we approve it correctly, so.
Yeah, when I looked
We
at
have
the
the motion.
minutes,
The CSM was never approved.
right, that's my point.
But
The
it's been
C-
recorded.
I'm not sure how that happened, but the city never approved the CSM, and that's why we're here. So,
So if we approve it again, is there a problem with that? No, probably not.
No, but if the developer is saying that the CSM has not been approved and they need this for their closing, I think that's a
Computers.
the step will be taken.
yeah, and we're set to close on the property next week sometime.
That somebody, maybe a draft CSM was, I don't know.
Okay, all right, so anyway, it will be redundant if it's already done, so. Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve the certified survey map, Whispering Pines condominium, Pleasant View Road, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are on to item number 4, and I hear that we are going to defer it, so.
Oh, okay.
Need a motion to defer.
Motion to defer.
Second.
So this is the concept review for building expansion, restoring Hope Transplant House, 7457 Terrace Avenue.
Just to be sure, is anybody here from Restoring Hope? No.
Do we, well, before I just clarifying my motion, we want to defer until the 23rd, right?
Actually, we don't know yet. So
Okay, well,
what-
defer, and then staff can just put it on the agenda when it's,
when it's ready.
ready to
Yeah,
come
they asked for it to be pulled, so.
okay. But part of what we're supposed to do is refer to the Landmarks Commission. Should we do that now, or should we wait until we have a completed?
I think, why shouldn't we do that now?
Well,
That's a good
because
idea, 'cause
do we,
then when
do we
they-
have a completed plan, or are they changing what their plan is gonna be?
What you could do is you could, I don't know the answer to your question, but you could go ahead and refer it to the Landmarks Commission, and then when they tell us that they're ready to proceed with their submittal, I will schedule a Landmarks Commission meeting if it's, that way they won't
They
get
can
hung
work
up
parallel,
and,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'll amend my motion to defer consideration and to refer to the Landmarks Commission.
And you agree?
Yep.
So I think that's much better.
Quick question on
Yes,
that.
Mike?
So the building that's there currently, what is the material of the exterior siding? Is that wood siding on that?
I'm pretty sure
Think
it's
so,
wood.
yeah.
I noticed that the expansion is vinyl. I mean, I don't know if that's our purview as planning commission to comment on that, but you would think that it would
I
want
didn't
some
notice
degree of
that.
continuity in the exterior material there.
Especially because it's in, is it a
Mike,
historic?
it's a landmark, and you have the
local
previous.
Well, and I assume they'll address that, but I'm just saying the plan showed that was pointed out as vinyl siding.
Okay, okay, so Abby, you will record that, let's make them aware of it. Thank you, Mike, that's a good catch.
Yeah.
Kurt, you had something?
No, I was just asking if it's on the national register or on the local register?
No, it's on the
The
local.
local
register.
landmark.
Any other questions or comments? Jennifer? Right? Okay, yes, go on.
I'm glad to see this, something happening there.
Yep.
I think it's a very important facility, and looking forward to review.
Yeah, it is amazing. They're almost doubling it, so that means there are a lot of people using it. So that's actually a very good sign. So, okay, all those in favor of the motion to defer it and refer it to the Landmarks Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Well, it is still not 7:15, so we can't go to item number 5.
I think
Well,
it's
it is
7:15.
almost 7:15, right? Or what is your, no, it's still,
We wait 30 seconds, it'll be 7:15.
I don't think we can do, we could do item number 7.
Here comes Dan.
Hi, Dan. So, okay, so this is also to defer it.
Yes.
Let's take item number 7.
Move to defer item number 7.
Second.
Any questions or comments? These guys have been working hard, but they just aren't ready, so they will be ready soon, so. You want to say more, John?
Can we request deferral to the July 23rd meeting?
Sure, I'll make that.
Okay,
That's my
If that's
motion.
okay with
Defer
staff
to
as well?
July 23rd.
okay.
That should give us
Alright.
enough time.
Okay, Dan, you have some questions or comments?
No question on this, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to defer until the next plan commission meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion passes. Now it is 7:15, and I'm going to open the public hearing for conditional use permit to convert duplex to 2 0 lot line parcels, John Laurent and Laurent Homes LLC, 330709 Northbrook Drive. Okay, anybody who wants to speak either in favor or against it? Anybody who wants to speak? Well, one more time, anybody who wants to speak? So, well, there are no takers, so I'm going to close that part of the public hearing, and we go to item number 5. Item number 5 is the conditional use permit and certified survey map to convert duplex to 2 0 lot line parcels, John Laurent Homes LLC, 3307-3309 Northbrook Drive. Need a motion to approve.
So
Or-
moved.
Okay, need a second.
Who was the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Mike and Wayne. Now let the discussion begin.
So, is someone gonna remind us?
The mayor hadn't asked, would you like a little presentation, Mayor?
Oh, absolutely,
That's
yes,
not what I
Mark.
do.
Let's go with it.
Um,
Let the presentation begin.
So this is before you tonight because our zoning ordinance outlines this procedure for considering the division of a duplex into 2 individual parcels. And it's in section 10.293 of the zoning ordinance. It outlines the conditional use permit process and, of course, the hearing that you just held as part of that process. In the staff comments, you will see the full text of the ordinance. It talks about dimensional standards, each lot needing to have separate water and sewer laterals, separately metered. Common wall shall be a 1-hour firewall extending from the basement floor to flush against the underside of the roof. And then there also needs to be a recorded 0 lot line maintenance agreement.
That's been accomplished?
No, these are all conditions of approval.
Okay.
You can ask the applicant to what degree this has been done, but my understanding is they're aware of these changes, and I'm getting a nod from the applicants. We have no objection to this. We recommend granting approval contingent on city staff confirmation that all conditions of this ordinance are satisfied, including execution of the maintenance agreement.
Okay,
You scroll up. There's gonna be 2 driveways? There already are.
Yeah,
And that's on,
on
Northbrook Road. Normally, we wouldn't like to create extra driveways, especially if it's a busy street, but that's not a. Nope, you gotta speak at the microphone, cause he's gotta record you.
yep, you already have 2 driveways, so.
There already are 2
Right,
established
right.
driveways. The houses connect and the garages are on separate ends, so there are already 2 separate driveways.
Okay.
Sir, what's your name for the record?
Ryan Radke,
Radke, R-A-D-T-K-E.
T-K-E, yes. And I currently live there right now, looking to purchase the house.
All right. Okay, any other question? Any other questions?
I guess I'd recommend we put the conditions in our motion.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the condition?
Well, the conditions that the conditions of section 10.1. 293 are satisfied.
Okay, I guess
It's in the staff report.
approve with conditions, so.
Is that a motion from Jen, Mayor? Was
Well-
that-
That a
No.
motion?
Was it asked to ask for a friendly amendment? Someone else made the motion
I
already.
didn't.
I think the Kurt
I
made,
don't think we made the motion.
Mike made the motion.
Motion.
Mike made a motion.
Wayne
Oh.
second.
Wayne
yeah,
seconded.
Mike and Wayne, yes.
Yeah.
The team there, folks, yes.
Oh, I hadn't heard that yet.
Yes, I'm fine fine with that.
Okay, so you're okay with that, putting the condition there, so.
Yes.
Okay, Kurt, you got something here
Can
now.
I ask the reason for this, just for mortgage purposes?
The reason to split it, yeah, so the reason to split it is just to sell it.
Please state your name and,
Yeah, my name is John Laurent.
okay.
So the reason is just to sell them as individual
As
units.
individual, like a townhouse, but a two-town?
Well, townhouse, yeah, or separate home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'm the current renter there,
Yeah.
right there, and I'm looking to purchase, so I
Yeah.
can
For me?
continue living
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I think makes perfect
I think
sense.
we're gonna see a lot more, and I hope we can consider making in our ordinance easier to do zero lot line townhouses and duplexes. Make that easier to do.
Easier than this, you mean?
I mean, this is easy,
Oh,
but this requires that you already have a duplex and then go through a conditional use permit.
Actually, you might want to ask the applicant how easy it is.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
It's $20,000 to add a lateral,
Yep.
and it's probably about $10,000 to $15,000 to take care of the shared wall. So it's
Oh, wow.
expensive. It's about $35,000 I'm putting into it.
So why does our ordinance require separate laterals?
It's because they follow the state.
State building code?
State code on there. And when you ask that, you get a little fuzzy answers after that, but.
Wait, so state building code would require, like, if you have a zero lot line townhouses, that every separate unit has its own lateral?
Not for townhouses, not for apartments, but for duplexes, they say that you have to have a separate lateral from the main water line.
So,
No, that's a state building code, nothing we can do about that.
well, you can change state building codes.
Well, we can't.
And we can't, but you can always ask for it. So, I mean, you could ask for it if it's, other builders could ask for it. Unless somebody starts it, it isn't going to happen, right?
Right.
So how would you make it easier for, it's good, well, it's good that you already have spent the money or are going to, but how could you make it easier for the others who
So,
might be interested?
I think that the positive of this is when you do this, this is a good way to get a single-family home at a much lower cost. Try to purchase a single-family home in the city of Middleton, you're looking at probably closer to $300,000. This will not,
Closer to 400.
very
That's
easily.
minimum.
This will be on the low 200s,
Yeah.
so it's much more economical. So, in my opinion, when you talk about the lateral, the main thing is, can the city or the utility company turn off the water from outside? That's it. To me, I would think that'd be the thing. Now, I'm speaking, that's an opinion, of course. And that currently exists right now. So I would think as long as you can have two separate utility measurements, metered, and you can turn off the water from the outside, and being the city crew could do that, I would think life would be fine with that. So I don't really see the benefit of adding a new lateral from the water main to the duplex. You currently can turn it off. I don't get the benefit of it.
Isn't there also an issue with the trap in the basement? So for another duplex that you had, it was my understanding that the trap to clean out the plumbing was available only on one side of the duplexes.
And that could be, Mark, I don't know the answer to that, but even still, that'd be fine if there was a logical reason for that, but it would still avoid, just tearing up the road and
Yeah.
adding that water lateral is a
Well,
huge expense.
Well, I mean, DSPS is good at giving variances in Middleton, even if they're not called for, but
So John, are you going
Separate
to,
issue.
sorry, go ahead. So John, are you going to take up with if you need any, city could possibly, recommend it, but you have to take it with the state, right? So you can make it
Well,
easier for the others.
It's my thought that the city of Middleton decided to go along with the state recommendation. I don't think it's a state, rule or law or anything like that. I think you have some variance in there, but again, I'm speaking without knowing that piece.
Okay.
well, if it's part of the Uniform Dwelling Code, we cannot change that or waive that.
Yeah.
Okay, so who is going to look into it? Kurt, you already know about it, or Abby?
No,
you know?
I'll talk to Bill Neitzel
Talk to
Okay.
Dave.
about it. Dave Sarbacher?
Yeah, talk to
Okay,
Dave.
I'll talk to Sarby about it.
Okay, so let's make things easier for people, so.
Well, but, can you scroll up? If it's in our ordinance, then the conditional use can't alter the ordinance. The ordinance requires, separate, does the ordinance, laterals, separate laterals.
That's right in the ordinance.
This ordinance
In the
was
ordinance.
established, I think, in 2012 or 7 or 8 years ago, and there's actually been just a couple or three of these that have come in, if even that. This might be the first one, maybe the second at most. Again, the idea is to have each unit be fully individually functioning. And so that's why there's separate laterals and the idea of the trap. I mean, if you are on one side, but the plumber can't fix your plumbing problem without contacting the neighbor, then you don't have an entirely single-family residence. You know, I mean, I think the thinking is that you have entirely separately functioning units that happen to share a wall that has to be a firewall, so if there's a big fire on one side, at least it's slowed from getting to the other side. So there's reasons why the ordinance are here, to protect the property owners on both sides.
This was a big topic at the APA conference, surrounding ADUs and how they're serviced. And a lot of cities are going the opposite, which makes it a lot less expensive for the property owner to create another unit.
And that's fine to do what you're saying, Mark, but I would suggest that you don't have to run a new lateral all the way to the main street.
I agree with you
Yeah.
on that. I think there's a lot of, we'll look into that, as Abby mentioned.
Okay,
We'll
Abby,
look into
let's look into it, and if we need to change some ordinance, let's do it. So I mean,
Yeah, if we have
If we
any
can.
ability to,
I
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
I think the state looks at that, so I don't know if you looked into this, but I think they would allow one lateral if you condominiumize the two units.
Oh,
which is-
You're right.
I think that's typically, they would allow one lateral, so that's an option, but, you know, maybe it's not the preferred option if you really want true fee ownership of each individual parcel. And I think the state typically requires another lateral for that.
Okay.
yeah, but considering the problem of affordable housing, I think this is something which we should look into. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just since we're having a detailed discussion about it, and I agree with what Mr. Slavish said, if that lateral to the street is on one side of the property line or another, and that a tree root grows into it, who pays for it? You know, if there's no condo structure.
The condo association.
Right.
Yes, that's why I mean-
But if
That's, I
there's
think
no
that's why
condo-
it's set up that way.
But if there's no condo structure, then you've got the problem of,
Who's
I
responsible
think that's
for
why
it?
it's,
Yeah,
why-
But I would suggest that that's where the maintenance agreement comes into play. You could argue the same thing, if you get damage to the roof, who pays for that too? So the maintenance agreement comes into play.
You could certainly write it in there.
we'll look into it and we'll report back.
yeah, no, these issues can be, handled, I think. So let's get the process started.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for considering it. Appreciate it.
Okay, now,
We can grant the
we
conditional
haven't
use.
voted on it yet, so any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion with various conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to item number 6, and there's someone who actually likes to speak. And this is a concept review for Town Place Suites by Marriott, 3055 Deming Way. Abby, who is going to take it? You or the Mark?
I wrote the staff comments. So this is for an 87-unit hotel. You'll recall at a previous meeting, actually, you had the public hearing on the GIP amendment, and that has gone to the council and had the first reading at the council, and that needs to be, still needs to be addressed. I don't think that was 2 readings, was it, Abby? I wasn't there last.
I think it was just at the last.
Yeah.
And that's to make it a conditional use on this parcel.
Right, to allow for this parcel, and they're now requesting concept review in preparation for a public hearing that is scheduled for, remind me, Abby, did we decide to pull that? We pulled the hearing, right? So it's in August?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I
think
wrote the
we
hearing
do,
notice.
Yeah, because you picked
August
up you picked up the slip, yeah.
Right,
August,
13.
it's the first meeting in August. I just
yeah,
wrote it down.
August 13th.
14.
We still have 2018 up there, I'm not sure.
They're here tonight to request feedback on the concept before they proceed with the public application for a conditional use permit.
So from what I remember, you guys had several concerns. It has a very little area on the Deming Way, right? frontage there, and then, so there were some other issues, so you want to outline?
Sure, I can, so the proposal is to have, as I mentioned, 87 units, 88 parking spaces for a four-story building. The front, the stormwater pond would be located the front along Deming Way, which limits the street edge potential, although the size of the lot does that too. The configuration of the lot does that, has that limitation. I also wrote some notes about adjoining or nearby hotels and how this site would compare to those hotels, those sizes, the Courtyard and the Country Inn, which are just down the road to the south. So we recommended that if this development proceeds, that we work with the developer on ways to provide additional access via one or more of the adjoining properties. That was an opportunity that we saw at the staff level. You can see Spectrum has, of course, the property to the east, southeast, and there's a drive aisle there, but of course that's not owned by that's owned by a different company, different private, a different entity. So we just thought that the site, it felt like it was a lot on the site, the way it was configured, and a lot of impervious area. And so we thought maybe there's an opportunity for another access point serving the property.
So how do you feel about that? You have any input?
Yeah, actually. So my name is Steve Dorn. I'm with Galway Companies. I'm a co-developer of the project with Kinseth Hospitality. And it seems like there were three concerns that we needed to address tonight. One was the amount of building and pavement on the site. Second would be the access, and third, just the orientation of the street. So I'll kind of address them in that order. Adam Frendell with JLA is our architect. He put together a very nice map for all of us, which I think we'll pass out to everybody. And we kind of did a quick comparison of what does this site look like in comparison to some of the other hotels
Thank you.
in the neighborhood. Do you have enough? Hopefully. Yep, looks like.
Thanks.
Let me address what we're looking at here?
Yep.
Sure. Adam Frendall with JLA Architects. So what you're looking at here is just a comparison. We wanted to take a look at similar properties, and these percentages listed on here are not, 100% accurate down to the CSM because it wasn't available to us. But with computers these days, we're able to overlay with Google Maps and DCI Maps to get close. So our proposed Town Place Suite sites is roughly 21% building footprint. That's between the hotel and the refuse enclosure. 52% pavement and 27% green space. So the first question we asked was, how does that compare to some of the other hotels close by? And if you look down the parcels in blue, the Courtyard Building, Hilton Garden Inn, and Residence Inn are all very comparable. I think the Hilton's a little bit heavier on the pavement, but that just has a little bit to do with site configuration and building size, perhaps. Ran a few checks on some of these other green commercial areas, and they're all right in the same ballpark of how much density of building and parking to green space in this area. So we feel that it's very appropriate size-wise for this size parcel. One of the other things to note, the Courtyard Building also abuts or comes very close to the property line at the rear of the site, within 8 feet from what I can tell, which is just for the form of the pool part of the building. It's just a one-story. So on our footprint up there, the larger box to the back is just a one-story portion of the building, and then it steps back to the main hotel, 4 floors, in line with the rest of the building. So that's a very similar condition to Courtyard, but we feel that the density is very comparable to other development in the area.
So one of the other things we looked at too is, the parking ratio right now would require, I think, Abby, 100 stalls for an 87 unit hotel. We've proposed 87, which from a hotel operational standpoint, we feel is adequate. One of the things, these operators have really realized is a lot of people coming into town are using Uber and Lyft, and they're not using cars as much. So we feel comfortable with that. we've looked at, you know, some of the initiatives Middleton has, and we realize that is to be a little bit more urban and less suburban in some of these locations to plan for growth. So, you know, we realize this is, you know, a tight site, but we feel like the layout of the site from an operational standpoint and from future planning actually worked out pretty well, given the size and just weird dimensions of the site. I think the second thing on the list was just the orientation of the street. And as you'll notice, one of the things we tried to do is not put any parking directly in front, kind of between the building itself and the road, to give it as much of, you know, the urban edge type feel as we can. But there's really no other way to lay out the building, because we need that, you know, there's only one place we can get access into the site. And so we feel we've addressed that to the best of our abilities. And if we kind of look at some of the neighboring sites, Spectrum has parking towards the street. We feel like the building fits in nicely with kind of some of the other developments in the area.
So have you talked to Spectrum, or you plan to, or?
Yeah, so that's kind of the next, kind of the third thing is access, right? And we, you know, look, we think operationally it works. Would we love to have access around the site? Absolutely. Would we plan to try to make that work? Yeah, I mean, we've talked to John Livesey, who owns the Spectrum building, and you know, John would love to work with us. And the issue is he has a tenant, and that's Spectrum, and you know, they're not willing to lose any parking, and there's no real way to open a cut into their site without losing parking on our side and parking on their side. So John's comment to me was, hey, listen, we'd love to work with you, but Steve, quite frankly, Spectrum is a big company, and number one, you asking me or them to lose parking? Good luck. Number two, getting them to even respond, even if they didn't lose parking, plan on a year. So, you know, we would love to be able to, if it was any of us owning the neighboring property, and we could sit down at a table and talk about how we could get access into the Spectrum site, we would certainly pursue that and do some sort of shared access. We just don't feel like that's feasible based on.
Who owns the property to the west?
Yeah, so then the next parcel is Lee Bruce, who we're purchasing this parcel from. And actually Tom Phillips is here representing
How big is that parcel?
Lee tonight. That parcel's about 1.75 acres remaining.
About
See
the
where I'm
same
going with
size.
that?
Yeah, I do, and I see where you're going with it. The issue is Lee will not carve out an access point unless we buy the property from him, because he wants to be able to understand. He doesn't know how that site's going to lay out in the future.
Does he own the stuff just north of it?
He owns everything around it. Yep. At the same time, though, and Tom can attest to this, he's willing to work with us. If we were to plan for an access point on the northwest portion of the site and even plug it in, he's willing to work with us and connect that in the future, you know, when he has a user. So I do think, you know, Plan Commission would have another kick at the can at this when that site's developed, if we set our site up so that we are willing to do some sort of cross-access agreement with that parcel. You could technically require that parcel in the future to connect through to us. And we're happy to work with you on that. We're happy to set our site up, you know, so that it functions that way. We don't control it, so we can't get access where we don't control it.
Mark has a question.
Yeah, so, and I think we're all thinking along the same lines. So what's shown at the northwest side of your site, that little, is that a turnaround?
That's a turnaround, fire access turnaround, correct.
So could that then follow the lot lines and straddle the lot line to Nursery Drive?
Sure. Yeah, it could run perpendicular and.
Serve all three parcels then?
Sure, yep. Yeah, instead of being an angled up into the corner, we could straighten that out so that it could be a future access, yep.
Or it angles and then turns and follows the lot, you know, the angle.
Sure.
The angle's fine, but it could turn west and then straddle that lot line where it says 2100.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It could stay the way it is, and we could.
Under 10.
Yep.
Yeah, I see the Spectrum because they use their parking lot during the day. In
Right.
the evening, you know, it's all empty. So,
Right.
so it makes sense to, well, at some stage reach some, talk to them, I suppose, so
Sure.
maybe things will happen, so. Any other, yeah, go ahead, Kurt.
What is ACS on the west side of Nursery?
Oh, yeah, that building is empty now.
Okay.
so,
Flooded out,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. The building to the west of you, ACS flooded. Spectrum flooded.
No, Spectrum,
Did Spectrum suffer any flood damage?
Not that I'm aware of.
no.
But most of the southern parking lot was underwater.
Right.
It wasn't damaged.
The southern parking lot or the western parking lot?
Southern.
Was the western parking lot underwater?
I don't think so.
Is this considered to be in a floodplain?
No.
But it should be. I mean, if it were, what would be the flood elevation? Have you run some?
We will be, look,
Analysis as to
we all know what
elevate-
happened last year,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
where
we're
I'm
gonna
going.
raise this thing up, out of the ground a little bit to ensure that we're not gonna have those issues, for
You're not
sure.
gonna park your
But-
mechanicals in the
but yeah.
basement.
But,
Right?
yeah, all the mechanicals will be on the roof, or on.
All the mechanicals will be on the roof.
Or-
I mean, that
or
was
in
the problem with the,
Or P-TEC units, yeah.
what was the other, the hotel that really flooded? It wasn't Courtyard, it was the,
One by,
Residence?
on Greenway.
Yeah.
Fairmont, or Fairfield.
Fairfield.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because they put other mechanicals in the basement.
Yeah, nothing will be, this will be slab on grade.
Okay, and how much are you elevating it?
Well, the site, this is preliminary. We're still engineering the site. So, when we come back for formal approval, we'll be able to answer that, down to the T, but we have not fully engineered the site at this point.
Because you can understand our concern that.
Absolutely.
That shoehorning in more impervious surface in an area that experienced a lot of flooding.
Yep.
Because,
Yeah, we definitely understand the concern. We've got D'Onofrio Cocky working on the engineering for us, specifically because they've been here, they saw what happened last year, they are very familiar with the rest of the land in this neighborhood, and, we want to make sure that if it does happen again, we don't have that issue.
well, and, I mean, this is gonna sound crass, but if a building at night that's office floods, that's one thing. But if when a hotel floods, then the fire
That's a
department has a
problem.
lot of people to rescue and worry about.
Right. Yep. Definitely appreciate the concern. We have the same feelings.
So, there was that UW pharmacy, they did not flood. You can see the other buildings which also did not flood. And even the Mead and Hunt, their parking lot partly was, and again, the Fish Car didn't flood, so,
It's a
no.
It's a legitimate question, because as we build more here and we have more impervious surface, there's no place for that. We're losing these lots where that water could potentially infiltrate. So, I mean, it is something that has to be looked at.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not sure how much infiltration potential there is
I'm
in
not,
those lots, but,
there probably isn't a great deal, but we certainly know that rooftops and parking lots
oh, yeah.
aren't going to help.
Oh, and not gonna help, right, yeah.
That was actually close to where I was going. Looks like you have some stormwater ponds. Can you explain where those
Sure.
are and the sizing of those?
So, Bruce Holler from D'Onofrio Cocky has been working through the civil engineering on this, and we do have a topographic plan completed right now that is working, and between the two retention ponds, the depth and the size are tweaked a little bit from what you're seeing on the plan, but he was able to handle all the stormwater with those two ponds. Part of the solution, because of the low points of the site and draining to two ends, means raising the building up a little bit. So there's gonna be some grading to get that first floor elevation up a little higher.
Any other questions to the
Is it-
applicants?
Is there enough space in the, if you move the building east towards Spectrum and put all your parking on the other side, what does that do to your site? I mean, other than having people have a view of
Well-
the parking lot.
Sure.
They would already be-
Well, as you guys know, with hotels, one of the big things with building position is the presence from longer view corridors, i.e. the Beltline. Being able to see their building signage from the highway is quite important, and part of the approval for Marriott for the site, which everything was approved on that end, right? Pushing the building to that side, you would still you know, you could flip the building around so that the drive access is over there and the pool's to Spectrum Brands. That's kind of put in the back of the building to Spectrum. I think that's not necessarily something that the hotel chain would support very well. It just seems kind of backwards, pushing the building that way and having access to both sides with full perimeter really kills the parking counts with drive aisle. So,
You'd be pulling into the back of the building then, I think, too.
yeah, well, unless you flip
You
the
lose the
building.
visibility of the front of the hotel.
Yeah.
From Deming at least, if you do that.
Any,
Well, it'd
yes, Kurt?
be easier to design if you had a bigger site,
Oh, yes, yes.
so.
So Mark, we do not have a maximum percent impervious. It's all based on just stormwater design meeting the retention requirement?
It's certainly, what you said at the end, that meeting the stormwater design, meeting the requirement, obviously, is the
Yeah.
underlying principle. I did not check the PDD to see if we had a maximum, and I don't have that memorized. So whether the GIP for this site, if that has a maximum, I didn't check that. But as they noted, and as I noted in the staff comments, this is pretty comparable to other projects in the area. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not an issue, but we obviously have new information with the flooding that occurred and have new concerns. But we will check that, of course, when there's a detailed submittal. We will make sure that it meets all the ordinance requirements.
Is this in a TID?
This, I would, oh, yeah, yeah.
Would you be seeking TIF assistance?
That's good, that's good.
I would also add.
And we're getting room tax revenue.
Yes, yes, that's a good thing, so. Yes, Mark?
I was just gonna say, they spoke about the parking and how the ratio is less than what we would normally require. That actually wasn't an issue that we raised at the staff level, because we recognize that the ride-hailing services that are out there now, that people are using parking differently. So that reduction in parking is not, I'm not concerned, and Abby's indicating she's not concerned either. So,
You add bike parking?
Yes.
You have some shown on there. It's a little hard to read at this scale.
We're gonna
but
get the
we'll
bike share
have
out
it
there.
Clearly labeled for the next submission, yeah.
Right here.
Okay, any more input to the applicants?
Did you say which hotel chain this was?
Home Place Suites, it's a Marriott brand, so it's an extended stay hotel.
You anticipate including any electric vehicle charging stations?
At this point, we do not. Mainly because, you know, people that are traveling here, a lot of people might be renting a car, and I'm not really aware of any car rental companies that rent them at this point. I know that with Marriott, some of their urban hotels, a lot of this is driven by Marriott, what they require. So I know a lot of in their urban hotels, they have started to, where they have the car share service, and there's an electric vehicle available, they have started to implement some of the charging stations, so I could see that as something they potentially implement in the future.
Yeah, so you will have the flexibility in case it's needed, so,
Yeah, they're
Okay.
easy to put in.
okay. Yes, Wayne, you have something?
Nothing else.
Jennifer? Anyone else?
So I just have one more quick question. Our next step is we have to order the TIA, traffic impact analysis. And the traffic impact analysis is done based upon our site plan. So one of the big things we were looking for tonight is, based on this new information we've provided, is everybody here fairly comfortable with our site plan that we can order the TIA and get prepared for final submission on August 13th?
Seems like the primary thing they'd be looking for would be the number of parking spaces.
And access.
Access, and also specifically whether there's just the one point on Deming Way, or they would also, if there's a future potential cross access as out to Nursery, they would evaluate that also.
No,
staff standpoint, I think is a great idea.
I remember, I think it was last time, we had another hotel before us that had this, that what had happened is that previously they had required that land be set aside for future parking, but only if it was needed. And I'm wondering, I mean, I'm all for reducing parking requirements, because, I mean, if people don't have a place to park, they're not gonna stay, so.
Sure, yeah, we've
It's
reduced
not
it
like they're
down.
gonna be parking on Deming Way, right? I mean, this is not a residential area, so I'm not really worried about, people worried about street parking, but
It's legal to park on Deming.
it is, so, I mean, I'd,
And that one, that set aside parking, aren't they now selling that?
yeah, because we don't need it, they don't need it.
I don't, I'm comfortable with the
Yeah,
parking.
I'm comfortable with the parking.
Okay.
Are you considering any, green features like, solar panels on the roof or anything?
At this point, we're not.
Okay, any
Might
more
be a
input to
TIF
the
eligible
applicants?
expense.
Yeah.
You might consult the staff, that is usually a TIF eligible expense.
Okay, yeah, be happy to talk about
Consider
that more.
that.
That would be great.
Mike, Wayne, any more input? Okay, so you guys are happy now?
Can I ask one
Oh,
more
yes,
question?
go ahead, Jennifer.
So I just want to clarify, in terms of the adjacent landowners, can you just clarify one more time, that have you talked to Spectrum and they will not allow,
I can't even get a hold of Spectrum. I've talked to John Levacy, who owns the building.
okay. And I guess what I would be curious would be is if you would include the TIF, the TIA to have an access point on Nursery as one of the alternatives.
Yeah, absolutely. We would happily set our site up so that any future development of that site to the west could force us to give them access through our parcel, and we could have access to their parcel. We think it's a great idea.
I think they can run that as one of the scenarios.
Sure. That'd be great.
Abby will recall this too. We tried to anticipate this with the Tires Plus site several years ago. So we were proactive, as I recall, and then the second tenant that came in didn't want the connection. So we're gonna have to find a way to
Yep.
deal with that. So
I
we
remember.
can plan all we want, but if both property owners aren't on the same page, sometimes.
So Steve, question. So the fact that the same property owner owns both of these sites currently, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Get a commitment from them that they will make that connection, or make whoever buys that property as a requirement for the sale?
Yeah, let's hear from, go ahead. And
Yeah.
I'm Tom Phillips with Ruta Bush Commercial Investments. We represent Lee and Jean, but Lee and Jean's point is that site, it most likely is going to be a single user. We're master planning the 15 acres along the belt line now. This site doesn't fit into it. It's going to be never can say for sure, but the probability is it'll be a single building on that site, not tying into the rest of the vacant land, but we can't commit to anything.
could you
Close
please,
to the mic, yeah.
We can't commit to anything right now on it, because we just don't know how that site's gonna develop. It'll be a great corner, most likely a freestanding building there with parking, and to incorporate in a driveway, access to the hotel, it would be logical, but Lee and Jean aren't ready to commit to that at this point until they know what is gonna be on that site.
so
and
you
how it
guys
will
know
be
who to work
developed.
with now or work on. So Tom isn't, so what would it take for them to get that commitment now?
Boy, we did talk about it early on.
Hmm.
Have you met them?
You could purchase more land. You could buy an easement potentially, but it really does encumber that 1.7 acres at this
Okay,
point.
we will let you work it out, so that's the suggestion here, so.
Yeah, I think we've tried, we have tried every way we can to try to work something out with them.
Mhm.
And we're willing to commit on our end. We'll put that access right up to the property line, and we'll commit on our side, whether it's through a deed restriction or through some sort of easement that we record against the parcel now, that you can force us to let that future development run through our parcel. But we don't see a way that we can get Lee and Jean to commit, which has been,
There's no way we could condition approval on this parcel,
the next parcel you could.
on the other parcels. Because it wasn't a condition of the whole SIP. For
Right,
the whole,
but you'll,
for the whole area.
but when that site's developed, you could make a condition of that site being developed, that ties into our access point that we've got set up for them. So you still hold the cards.
So we don't have the ability to make this approval conditional on securing an easement from?
No, I don't think that.
I don't think so.
I mean, that would be, I think, more than we could reasonably defend, yeah.
Question mark would be, can we, to that point, can we, as that site's developed, could we require that development to make a tie-in to this site, provided that driveway is built?
Well, and I guess the other question is, the fire department usually wants 2 points of ingress and egress.
Yep.
Particularly if you're talking about 87 hotel rooms and something goes wrong. Right now, there's only one ingress, right, off of Deming Way.
Yep.
If that's blocked for some reason, they're gonna probably insist on some way to get to the hotel through Spectrum's parking lot or the adjoining parcel.
We've got an email into fire.
You definitely wanna meet with the fire department.
Yeah, we've
Yep.
set this up. If you look at the northwest corner of the site, that is a turnaround for
Yeah.
fire. So it's set up, everything meets code as far as turnaround.
Okay.
And this is not, I mean, I'm happy to bring, other examples of sites where we've seen this be developed. This is a very common way to.
Well, I mean,
provide-
it's just something we raised.
Yeah,
The
no,
fire
it's a
department has
great-
to choose.
No, it's a great, yep.
They know what they're
Well,
doing, so we don't.
Actually, the flood is a perfect example because Deming was underwater here, so there would, if this happened and the building were here.
And they
there
need
was
to
no
evacuate
ac-
tenants. There's no way to get in the
There was no
parcel.
way to get in or out except for by boat.
And remember, the Whispering Pines, we had to have a second, outlet there. So I mean, that was
Egress,
what really kept that project from moving forward. And even we had to have a contract with relationship with the town of Middleton and then create that,
That was an
another-
unpaved, just
Yeah,
another point
secondary
there.
ingress.
sure.
So I think here it probably would be, I would be surprised if the fire department will approve this.
Well, but you develop hotels all over, so.
Well, I mean, and I think that's what, we haven't heard back from fire. Obviously, we're not gonna, try to move forward with something at final plan commission without, their support. But I think that's frankly what we're looking for tonight is, do we have support with this site plan if fire approves it? If not, I don't know how the project proceeds because we're not able to get additional access. And so that's what we're trying to get tonight before we prepare for final or, spend the money on a TIA.
Yeah, I would say talk to the fire department as soon as you can, so that would be
Yep.
pretty important, so.
Right.
Any other input?
Are you looking for a vote for concept approval?
Remember, concept approval's not binding either.
Right, but if it's on the record, it helps. And the concept we're approving is really the idea of a 4-story hotel with 87, how many suites? 87 suites. And approximately
88
this
spots.
layout.
Right.
Is that what your motion is
Well,
then?
With the
But
requirement
with the
that,
concerns that we've expressed on the record about the TIA, fire, flooding,
And the others?
and the others. I'm trying to remember what we all talked about.
I have a list of,
Issues?
yeah.
Okay, so we need a second.
Well, if the fire
I'm not even sure
department
I wasn't making a motion. I was
Oh,
just-
okay, you are not, okay.
I was thinking out loud.
Okay,
It's still, I think you understand that we're a little hesitant because it's a pretty tight site.
I actually think a perfect analogy is the Fairfield site, well, almost perfect analogy, but if you think of that, Fairfield is the second from the corner, John Q. Hammond's. Then you've got Five Guys and the mattress store and whatever else is in there. And then you've got the bank to the north, and they have a shared access coming across the north side along the shared lot line. The only difference is Fairfield doesn't have any access off of Greenway, whereas this would have a secondary access. Obviously, 2 access points is much preferred. Tom, in response to something Phillips said, you know, obviously this will become likely a single building, and having a shared driveway that's allowed to be further north along the lot line, straddling the lot line, actually increases the developability of the corner lot. So I'm optimistic that this won't be an issue, but I think it's important to note, as you all have, that, you know, having the shared ability to share the driveway access, which is crucial for emergency responders, is you know, is the city's expectation as that other lot develops.
As far as feasibility goes, though, of getting it installed, I think it would make more sense to try to keep it on these two parcels rather than involving this parcel, which you guys are Tom said they're master planning right now. Because this is gonna be a big user, they're not gonna wanna access from the very southern part of their site.
They'll have multiple access points.
Then you're working with 3 entities rather than just 2. What I had talked with them about was recording an easement for cross-access purposes now and having that be a requirement of design review, but then reconfiguring this so that it would be straight out to nursery.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
We
Okay.
like cross-access easements. Those are important for circulation.
Okay, more input? So you said we don't really need a motion. You guys are happy with the input, I suppose?
Do you guys want to make a motion?
I guess
I
we
don't, I feel like if there was a motion, I couldn't vote for it without some assurance that there will be that secondary access.
I would say you have to go to the Milton Fire Department quickly and see what you can, and then think about what Abby proposed as well.
Well, I think what Abby's proposing, we're in agreement with.
Okay,
Record a cross-access
Yeah.
easement for.
Yeah.
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 But that's for the future.
Right. I think what we're looking for is if you know, we're willing to record that, but then if we come back and we have no assurance of it, is then the project not going to get support? Because if that's the case, then I think, I'm not sure where we go from here. But I understand that's, the caveat is we do need fire support.
well, so,
There's just, in my head, I keep trying to redesign your building for you and its location on the site, but it doesn't work. This is really the only place on that site you could squeeze in a building like that. But it feels like you're kind of shoehorning it in there.
Again, if you look at the other hotels that have been
Right.
developed, we're dead on. And in some respects, more green space.
I'm less worried than Mark is about the urban edge, because it's a very suburban office park street, and it's on a curve anyway.
okay, so what are you guys expecting and what are we willing to?
It'd be great if you could get 10 more feet on the western parcel side. Just put some more landscaping there. So it's not right up to the parcel line, but.
Yeah, I guess those details can be worked out later, right? As they go further along. Okay, so are we just providing the input or are we going to make any?
Well, it seems like what the issue or what one of the major concerns is obviously this secondary access.
Okay.
And it also seems like there's this concern about fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's adequate circulation for fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if this goes to the fire department and fire department feels, yep, this is okay, I suspect probably more
Inclined to approve it,
kinda,
yes.
yeah, support it. But not knowing that at this point,
Yes.
I guess that's kind of where we're at.
Okay.
And if the fire department isn't inclined to be in favor, then you go back to
Yeah,
Mr.
then-
Bruce,
then-
and, I mean.
Yeah, then something else has gotta happen.
Right.
Right, but, you know, it's.
Another
I guess
negotiation takes place.
There's a step here, and that's the
Sure.
fire department. and-
Okay, we'll talk to fire.
Okay, so I guess that's all we need here now, right?
Okay.
Absolutely. That's in the motion. I'll be listing in bullet form probably the issues that were
Yeah, the
raised.
Yeah, issues raised.
That way,
Okay.
at least you got that feedback and all the issues that were.
Great.
We all want to help you, but.
Nope,
you
I
know, guess
appreciate
the-
it, and I do sincerely appreciate it.
I don't think we're against a hotel on that site. I think there's,
We wouldn't have.
you know, we
want
wouldn't have
it to
even done the
be-
conditional use thing.
We don't want it to get flooded, we want it to be safe, and those are the two really big things there, so.
I think
And
we're
I-
all on the
I
same
think-
page.
I think the hotel will do well there. I think there's enough demand in that area.
Yeah, Spectrum by itself.
And then who knows what's gonna be developed above
Sure.
it, but,
Okay, thanks again for all your time. I
Okay,
really
all right.
appreciate it. Have a good night.
Okay, let's move on to item number 8. This is the review of task order number 19.06 with Strand and Associates Incorporated for tax incremental district number 3, engineering support services.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Who was the second, Mayor?
who was the second? Dan.
Leaf and Dan. So, any questions or comments? They only come to the meetings when invited, so. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn and go home and have dinner, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. All right.
Fine.